I am Hazel Johnson, 28 years old, and my high school graduation became the worst day of my life. What should have been a celebration turned into humiliation when someone labeled me the ugliest graduate in a doctored yearbook photo. My family, obsessed with appearances, gave me an ultimatum that night: plastic surgery, or get out. I chose myself and got disowned. 10 years later, I own a multi-million-dollar beauty brand redefining industry standards. If you want to know how the ugly duckling transformed her life, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me on this journey of reinvention. Growing up in Fairfield, Connecticut, in a sprawling colonial house with pristine gardens, I learned early that appearances were the Johnson family currency. Our mailbox might as well have read "The Beautiful People" instead of our actual address. From the outside, we were picture perfect. My mother, Regina, had been Miss Connecticut in her youth, with her pageant crowns displayed prominently in our living room. My father, Maxwell, was not just any doctor but a sought-after plastic surgeon whose clients included minor celebrities and wealthy socialites from New York and Boston. Our family photo albums looked like they belonged in a glossy magazine. Then there were my sisters. Stephanie, 3 years older, had inherited our mother's willowy frame, golden blonde hair, and dazzling smile. Alexandra, just a year older than me, possessed striking blue eyes and the kind of natural beauty that turned heads everywhere. Both excelled in local pageants, following our mother's legacy. Their bedroom walls were covered with ribbons, crowns, and trophies celebrating their external beauty. And then there was me. From an early age, I was different. While my sisters were thin and graceful, I was what adults euphemistically called stocky. My face was round with perpetually rosy cheeks that earned me the nickname Tomato Face from kindergarten bullies. By 12, I was fighting a losing battle with acne. My teeth grew in crooked, requiring braces that added metal to my already self-conscious smile. My fashion sense, if you could call it, that leaned toward comfort rather than style, much to my mother's dismay. "Hazel, darling, stand up straight" became my mother's daily mantra. "No one will notice your pretty eyes if you slouch like that." The pretty eyes comment was her way of finding anything positive to say about my appearance. The truth was, in a family where beauty was everything, I was the odd one out. Our family had weekly evaluation sessions, a bizarre ritual where we would each stand before my parents in the formal living room for an assessment of our appearance. My sisters usually received glowing reviews with minor suggestions for improvement. "Stephanie, your posture has been impeccable this week. Perhaps a little more highlighting in your hair for summer." "Alexandra, that new skincare routine is working beautifully. Your complexion is radiant." When my turn came, the list of areas for improvement was exhaustive. "Hazel, we need to address your weight. I am thinking of putting you on the same diet I used before my Miss Connecticut swimsuit competition. Your skin needs aggressive treatment. I will schedule you with Dr. Patterson next week. Those clothes do nothing for your figure. We should completely overhaul your wardrobe." By 13, my mother had me on various diets, none of which worked long-term. My father, while less vocal, would sometimes look at me with clinical assessment in his eyes. "When you turn 16, Hazel, if you want, I could help you with a few adjustments. Nothing major, just some refinements." The casual way he offered to surgically alter his own daughter still makes me shudder. My sisters were not intentionally cruel, but they existed in a different universe. They had their popular friends, their beauty routines, their shared language of cosmetics and fashion. They excluded me from shopping trips, claiming I would be bored or that I would not appreciate the stores they visited. When their friends came over, I was invisible, retreating to my room with sketchbooks and colored pencils, my only real escape. The single positive relationship in my early life was with my grandmother, Dorothea. Unlike her daughter, my mother, Grandma Dorothea, valued character over appearance. A former literature professor, she would visit monthly, bringing books instead of beauty products. "Beauty fades, Hazel," she would tell me, her wrinkled hand patting mine. "But intelligence, kindness, and creativity only grow stronger with time." In her presence, I felt worthy. But those visits were brief respites in a household where mirrors seemed to judge me around every corner. The moment that crystallized my family's attitude came when I was 12. I had gone downstairs for a glass of water after bedtime and overheard my parents in the living room. "What are we going to do about Hazel?" my mother asked, voice tinged with genuine distress. "She got the worst combination of both our families' genes." "Regina, she is just going through an awkward phase," my father replied, though his tone lacked conviction. "It is more than that, Maxwell. Stephanie and Alexandra never had an awkward phase. Hazel is just disappointing. I do not know how to help her." Disappointing. The word lodged in my heart like a splinter. That night lying in bed, I understood with perfect clarity that in my family my worth was inextricably tied to my appearance. And by their standards, I was failing. That seed of insecurity, planted early and watered daily with criticism, grew into a strangling vine that threatened to define me. But sometimes what threatens to destroy us becomes the very thing that ultimately sets us free. Entering Fairfield High School as a freshman, I harbored no illusions about suddenly becoming popular. Years of family evaluation sessions had given me a realistic, if painful, assessment of where I stood in the social hierarchy. But something in me refused to accept that this would be my permanent reality. "New school, new start," I whispered to myself on that first day, clutching my backpack strap so tightly my knuckles turned white. High school predictably began as a battlefield. The popular girls, including my cousin Brittany Walker, took one look at me and dismissed me entirely. Their occasional mockery felt almost obligatory, as if ignoring me completely would have been a greater insult than acknowledging me through ridicule. "Did your closet explode this morning, or do you actually choose to dress like that?" Brittany asked one day, her perfect eyebrows raised as her friends tittered around her. But unlike middle school, where I had been completely isolated, high school offered something unexpected: other misfits. Taylor Fisher was the first to approach me in art class, her purple-streaked hair and multiple earrings marking her as another outlier in our conformist school. "Your drawing is seriously good," she said, peering over my shoulder at the fashion sketch I was working on. "Do you design clothes?" That simple question led to friendship with Taylor, and soon after with Audrey Patel, whose academic intensity made her socially awkward, and Brian Collins, a quiet boy whose passion for photography made him invisible behind his camera rather than in front of it. We formed our own small island in the social ocean of high school, finding strength in our shared outsider status. Art became my sanctuary. Mrs. Bailey, our art teacher, recognized something in my fashion sketches that no one else had bothered to see. "Hazel, you have a unique perspective," she told me after class one day, holding up my design for a dress that incorporated asymmetrical elements and unexpected fabric combinations. "You see beauty differently than most people, and that is a gift." Those words, so different from the criticism I routinely received at home, lit a spark. With Mrs. Bailey's encouragement, I began creating actual garments, not just sketches. I repurposed thrift store finds, combining elements in ways that expressed something I could not articulate any other way. Each creation was a statement. There are different ways to be beautiful. During sophomore year, Taylor suggested I start a blog to showcase my designs. Misfit Fashion by Hazel J. launched with terrible photos taken by Brian and rambling texts that attempted to explain my creative process. To my surprise, people actually started following it. Not many at first, just a few dozen curious souls who somehow resonated with my message about alternative beauty and body positivity. "Your stuff speaks to me," wrote one commenter. "I have never seen myself represented in fashion before." At school, I remained largely invisible or occasionally mocked, but online I was building a small community that valued exactly what made me different. The disconnect was surreal, but provided a lifeline of hope. By senior year, my blog had over 2,000 followers, a modest number but significant to me. At school, something unexpected happened. I was nominated for Most Creative in the senior superlatives. Not a pity nomination, but a genuine acknowledgement of the artistic skills I had been developing. For once, I felt seen for something positive. I decided to go all out for graduation, designing and creating the most spectacular dress I could imagine. It would be my statement piece, my declaration of self-worth in a system that had tried to convince me I had none. The dress took months to complete. deep blue fabric that shifted colors in different light-structured bodice, with delicate beadwork flowing skirt with hidden pockets. It was the physical embodiment of everything I had been trying to say with my art: beauty has infinite forms. 2 weeks before graduation, my grandmother visited and brought an antique jewelry box. "This is for you, Hazel," she said, placing it in my hands. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a pendant containing a small but perfect opal that flashed with hidden fire. "It was my mother's and her mother's before that," Grandma Dorothea explained. "I was saving it for someone special, someone who understands that true beauty comes from within and shines outward in unexpected ways." As she fastened it around my neck, I felt tears threatening. In a family where I had always been the afterthought, she had chosen me for this heirloom. "You are going to do remarkable things, Hazel," she whispered. "Your path will not be easy, but it will be uniquely yours." Graduation approached with a strange mix of emotions. Part of me could not wait to escape the confines of high school and family expectations. Another part nursed a small, persistent hope that somehow, wearing my beautiful handmade dress and grandmother's necklace, I might finally earn a measure of approval from my parents. The night before graduation, I tried on my completed creation one last time, twirling in front of the mirror. For perhaps the first time in my life, I looked at my reflection and felt something close to satisfaction. Not because I suddenly matched my family's beauty standards, but because I had created something authentic that expressed who I truly was. "Tomorrow," I told my reflection, "everything changes." I had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. Graduation morning arrived with golden June sunshine streaming through my bedroom curtains. For once, anticipation outweighed anxiety, as I carefully laid out everything I would need: my handmade dress, comfortable but stylish shoes, the minimal makeup I had learned to apply from YouTube tutorials, and of course, my grandmother's opal necklace. I took extra time with my appearance, not out of the usual family-induced insecurity, but because this day felt momentous. After years of feeling like an ugly duckling, I was ready to spread my wings, even if they were different from what everyone expected. When I descended the stairs in my creation, something unprecedented happened. My mother actually paused, coffee cup halfway to her lips. "Hazel," she said, blinking rapidly, "that dress is quite something." From Regina Johnson, this qualified as effusive praise. My father lowered his newspaper. "Did you make that yourself?" I nodded, warmth spreading through me at this rare moment of parental attention that was not criticism. Even my sisters seemed impressed. Stephanie circled me, examining the stitching and beadwork with genuine interest. "This is actually really good," she admitted. Alexandra helped adjust my hair, an unexpected gesture of sisterly support. "You should definitely get some professional photos today," she suggested. For the first time in recent memory, I felt like a true member of the Johnson family. The sensation was so foreign that I hardly knew how to process it, but I welcomed it like a plant turning toward unexpected sunlight. At the school gymnasium, decorated with blue and silver streamers and balloons, I met up with Taylor, Audrey, and Brian. Taylor whistled appreciatively at my dress, while Audrey hugged me tightly. "You look incredible," Brian said quietly, raising his camera to capture the moment. We separated to find our alphabetically assigned seats, and I settled into place with the other J surnames, heart beating with a mix of excitement and the residual anxiety that never quite left me in public settings. Principal Thompson gave a predictably bland speech about futures and potential, followed by the valedictorian Nathan Parker, whose words about inclusion and acceptance seemed performative, coming from someone who had never acknowledged the existence of anyone outside his advanced placement social circle. Finally, the moment arrived. Names began to be called, each graduate walking across the stage to receive their diploma and a handshake. Hazel Johnson. I rose surprisingly steady on my feet and made the long walk across the stage. The lights were bright, faces in the audience blurring into a sea of expectant expressions. Principal Thompson handed me the diploma case with a generic smile. I turned slightly to see my family in the audience. To my surprise, they were all watching intently, even smiling. My father actually gave a small thumbs up. That moment of approval, so long sought and rarely received, carried me back to my seat on a cloud of validation. Maybe, just maybe, things were changing. As I settled back into my chair, I noticed something odd. A few people nearby were looking at their phones, then at me, then quickly away. A girl 2 seats down was covering her mouth, shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. The ceremony continued, but my newfound confidence began to crumble as I became increasingly aware of sidelong glances and poorly concealed snickers. When the final name was called and the caps had been thrown, I found Taylor pushing urgently through the crowd toward me, her face a mask of fury. "Hazel, we need to leave. Now." "What is wrong? What happened?" She grabbed my arm, trying to pull me toward the exit, but it was too late. Brittany and her friends sauntered up, phones in hand. "Congratulations, Hazel," Brittany said, voice dripping with false sweetness. "You finally won a superlative." She held up her phone, displaying a doctored photo from the yearbook. Someone had taken my senior portrait and edited it grotesquely, enlarging my nose, adding more acne, yellowing my teeth, and plastering "Ugliest Graduate" across the bottom in bold letters. Worse, they had somehow managed to slip printed copies into some of the yearbooks that had been distributed after the ceremony. My stomach dropped as if I had been pushed from a great height. Around me, I could see other students looking at the same image on their phones, a few having the decency to appear uncomfortable, but many laughing openly. "Did you really think that dress would make a difference?" Brittany asked, her perfect features arranged in mock pity. "You cannot disguise what you are, Hazel." Taylor lunged forward, but I caught her arm. "Do not. She is not worth it." Through numb lips, I asked Brittany, "How long have you been planning this?" Her satisfied smile told me everything. "Months. We had a whole committee." She leaned closer, voice lowered. "You should thank me. Now you will always be remembered for something." I stood frozen, the diploma case clutched in my hand as Brittany and her friends walked away, mission accomplished. Audrey appeared at my side, face stricken. "Hazel, I am so sorry. This is cruel beyond words." Brian arrived next, camera lowered for once. "I deleted every copy I could find," he said. "But a lot of people have already seen it." I caught sight of my family across the gym. My mother's face was a rigid mask, lips pressed into a thin line. My father was looking at his shoes. Stephanie was whispering urgently to Alexandra, who kept glancing at me with what appeared to be genuine concern. The drive home was silent tension, filling our luxury SUV like poisonous gas. No one mentioned what had happened until we were inside our house, the door firmly closed against the outside world. Then my mother exploded. "How could you humiliate us like this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "The Stevensons saw that disgusting picture. The Hendersons, too. Everyone was talking about it." I stared at her in disbelief. "How could I humiliate you? I was the one who was humiliated. I was the victim here." "You have always invited this kind of attention," my father said quietly, his clinical detachment somehow worse than my mother's rage. "If you had let me make those adjustments I suggested years ago." "Adjustments," I repeated, voice rising. "You mean surgically altering your daughter because she does not meet your impossible standards of beauty?" My sister Stephanie sighed dramatically. "You are overreacting as usual, Hazel. It was just a stupid prank." A prank that our cousin spent months planning specifically to hurt me on what should have been a special day. Alexandra at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. "It was pretty mean," she admitted, earning a sharp look from our mother. Regina Johnson straightened her already perfect posture, decision visibly forming behind her eyes. "This ends now," she declared. "We have tolerated your alternative appearance for years, Hazel. We have suggested improvements which you have consistently rejected. But this public embarrassment is the final straw." My father nodded in agreement. "We are prepared to help you, Hazel. A complete transformation. I can schedule the first procedures for next month. Your mother will oversee a total wardrobe revision, professional styling, nutritionist, personal trainer. By the time college starts, no one will connect you with that horrible picture." I looked from one parent to the other, understanding washing over me like ice water. This was not support. This was not protection. This was not love. This was erasing me to preserve their precious reputation. "And if I refuse?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. My mother's expression hardened. Then you cannot continue to live in this house representing this family. We have standards, Hazel. It is time you met them. You are giving me an ultimatum. Change my appearance, or get out. We are offering you an opportunity, my father corrected, as if the distinction mattered. A chance to finally become who you were meant to be. In that moment, looking at their expectant faces, I understood with perfect clarity that who I was meant to be in their eyes had nothing to do with who I actually was. I will be upstairs packing, I said quietly. Do not be dramatic, Hazel, my mother snapped. Just agree to the procedures. But I was already climbing the stairs, a strange calm settling over me. In my room, I pulled out my largest suitcase and began filling it methodically with clothes, sketchbooks, and design materials. The dress I carefully folded on top. A soft knock came at my door. My grandmother stood there, eyes filled with tears. I heard everything she said. This is wrong, Hazel. So wrong. She tried to press money into my hand, but I heard my mother calling her from downstairs. With one last hug and whispered, I will find a way to help you, she was gone. When I descended the stairs with my suitcase, my family was arranged in the foyer like a tableau from a particularly cold Renaissance painting. You are making a mistake, my father said. No, I replied, grandmother's opal necklace cool against my skin. For the first time, I am making the right choice. I walked out the door of my childhood home with one suitcase, and no destination, disowned for the crime of being myself. The first night of homelessness has a particular quality of surrealism. Sitting on Taylor's bedroom floor at 2 a.m, surrounded by the hastily packed remnants of my life, I kept thinking I would wake up from this nightmare. But dawn came, and with it, the stark reality of my situation. You can stay here as long as you need, Taylor insisted, her parents nodding in agreement when she explained the situation at breakfast. But we all knew it was temporary. Taylor's family was heading to Europe for the summer, and their house would be rented out during their absence. I had exactly 3 weeks to figure out my next move. I spent those weeks frantically applying for jobs and researching affordable places to live. My blog followers rallied when I shared a vague version of my situation, offering encouragement and even small donations. It was not enough to live on, but enough to give me hope that someone somewhere valued what I had to offer. One comment changed everything: your designs would kill in New York. The weirder you are there, the better. New York City. Just 2 hours away by train, but might as well have been another planet compared to suburban Connecticut. A place where being different might actually be an asset rather than a liability. With my savings, blog donations, and a tearful cash gift secretly sent by my grandmother, I had enough for 2 months' rent on the tiniest apartment imaginable in the furthest reaches of Brooklyn, sharing with 3 strangers I found through an online listing. The day I boarded the train, Taylor, Audrey, and Brian came to see me off, making me promise to stay in touch. As the Connecticut landscape gave way to the New York suburbs and finally the looming Manhattan skyline, I felt equal parts terror and exhilaration. I was 18 years old, alone with no safety net and no real plan beyond survival. My new home was a shock. The apartment was smaller than my bedroom in Fairfield, with 4 of us crammed into a space meant for 2 at most. My roommates, all struggling artists or service workers, barely acknowledged my existence beyond collecting my share of the rent. My corner of the bedroom I shared with Natalie, a dancer working 3 jobs to make ends meet, consisted of a twin mattress on the floor and a plastic storage bin for my possessions. Finding work proved harder than I imagined. My lack of experience and unconventional appearance worked against me in retail interviews. I finally landed a job at a coffee shop where the manager cared more about punctuality than appearance, but the pay barely covered my share of the rent. I tried to continue my blog and creating designs, but after 10-hour shifts on my feet, creative energy was hard to find. More than once I found myself eating ramen noodles for the 5th day straight, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. Perhaps I should have accepted my parents' offer, sacrificed my identity for security. In those darkest moments, I would touch my grandmother's necklace and remember her words. Your path will not be easy, but it will be uniquely yours. 3 months into my New York experiment, disaster struck. Our apartment building was sold and all tenants were given 30 days to vacate. My roommates scattered to friends' couches and relatives' spare rooms options I did not have. With nowhere to go and barely $200 to my name, I faced the very real prospect of actual homelessness. Desperate, I began applying for fashion internships, despite knowing they were typically unpaid positions that privileged kids with financial support could afford to take. I was summarily rejected from 17 consecutive applications. The 18th at a small independent label earned me an actual interview. "Your portfolio is interesting," said the assistant who reviewed my sketches, "but not really aligned with our aesthetic. Have you considered that fashion might not be your calling?" That night, curled on my mattress in an apartment I would soon have to leave, I cried until there were no tears left. Then I opened my laptop and updated my blog for the first time in weeks. "Sometimes the universe seems determined to break us," I wrote, "but maybe we need to be broken open to find our true strength." The post included sketches of a new design concept: clothes specifically created for bodies that did not conform to traditional standards of beauty. The response was immediate and passionate, with more comments and shares than anything I had ever posted. Among the comments was one from a woman named Rachel Davis. "I would like to meet the mind behind these designs. Former fashion editor interested in new perspectives. Email me." Skeptical but desperate, I arranged to meet Rachel at a cafe in Manhattan. She turned out to be a former editor at a major fashion magazine who had left the industry after 20 years, disillusioned by its toxic beauty standards. "The industry is slowly changing," she told me over coffee, "but it needs people like you to push it forward. Your perspective is valuable, precisely because you stand outside conventional beauty norms." Rachel became my first real mentor in New York. She helped me find a job as an assistant at a small textile company where my design knowledge was actually useful. She introduced me to people in the industry who were open to alternative perspectives. Most importantly, she believed in my vision when I could barely hold on to it myself. "Start small," she advised. "Create a few key pieces that showcase your philosophy. We will find places to sell them." With Rachel's encouragement, I began designing and sewing again, creating clothes in my tiny new shared apartment during evenings and weekends. We started selling them at weekend markets in Brooklyn, pieces specifically designed to flatter body types ignored by mainstream fashion. Slowly, painfully slowly, things began to improve. I developed a small but loyal customer base. My blog readership grew. I moved to a slightly less terrible apartment with only 2 roommates. I was surviving, if not thriving. Throughout this period, my only contact with family was through my grandmother, who sent small amounts of money when she could, always with encouraging notes. My parents made no attempt to contact me, and I was too proud and hurt to reach out. Then came the call that shattered my fragile equilibrium. My grandmother had passed away suddenly from a stroke. The funeral would be in 2 days. I spent money I could not spare on a train ticket back to Connecticut and a simple black dress. When I arrived at the funeral home, my mother took one look at me and said coldly, "We are here to grieve as a family." The message was clear: I was not welcome. I stood at the back during the service, invisible. As always, heartbreaking anew as I realized I had lost the one person who had truly seen me. Afterward, Alexandra approached me briefly. "I am sorry about Grandma," she said awkwardly, "and about everything." But before we could have any real conversation, my mother called her away, and I returned to New York alone. That night in my dingy apartment, I hit rock bottom. The one person who had believed in me unconditionally was gone. I had been struggling for nearly a year with little to show for it. Maybe my family was right. Maybe I was destined to fail because I refused to conform. As tears streamed down my face, my hand found my grandmother's necklace, the opal, catching light even in my dark room. Looking at it, I remembered something else she had told me: beauty that has to announce itself is no beauty at all. True beauty changes how you see the world, not how the world sees you. In that moment of utter desolation, a clarity emerged. I had been trying to prove my worth in a system designed to exclude me. What if instead I created a new system with different values? Looking at my tear-streaked face in the mirror, I whispered words that would become my mantra, and eventually my company slogan: "I can define beauty myself." The morning after my epiphany, I woke with a sense of purpose I had not felt since leaving Connecticut. If the fashion and beauty industries would not make space for people like me, I would create that space myself. My pain would become my purpose. I called Rachel and asked to meet urgently. Over breakfast at a cheap diner, I outlined my vision, a clothing line specifically designed for unconventional beauty, highlighting rather than hiding the features that made each body unique. Ambitious, Rachel said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. And exactly what the industry needs, but it will require capital. My savings were minimal, but Rachel believed in my vision enough to offer a small loan. Combined with what I had and a final unexpected gift, a modest inheritance from my grandmother that arrived despite my family's disapproval, I had enough to launch a small website and create a limited collection. Hazel J Designs Beauty Redefined went live on a Tuesday morning. I had exactly 15 pieces available, each one carefully crafted to celebrate body types that mainstream fashion ignored. The photography done by a friend of Rachel's as a favor featured models found through an open casting call on my blog, people whose looks would never have made it past the first round in a traditional agency. For the first 3 days, sales trickled in slowly, mostly from loyal blog followers. Then something unexpected happened. Lucia Winters, a plus-size fashion blogger with a substantial following, ordered one of my dresses. A week later, she posted photos wearing it to a major industry event. For the first time, I am wearing something designed to make my body look beautiful as it is not, despite how it is, she wrote. The post went viral in fashion circles. Orders began pouring in, quickly depleting my small inventory. More significantly, 3 boutiques specializing in inclusive fashion contacted me about carrying my designs. Suddenly, I was not just surviving but growing. I hired my first employee, Paula Jackson, a brilliant pattern maker who had been repeatedly passed over by mainstream companies because of her weight. Together we expanded the line, creating new pieces that maintained the core philosophy: clothes that celebrated rather than disguised. 6 months after Lucia's post, I received an email that changed everything. Evelyn Mercer, a venture capitalist known for investing in women-led businesses, wanted to meet. Terrified but determined, I presented my vision in her sleek Manhattan office. The beauty and fashion industries are built on making women feel inadequate, I explained, showing her our designs and growth metrics. We are building something different, a brand that starts from the premise that everyone deserves to feel beautiful in their own skin. Evelyn listened intently, asked pointed questions about scalability and market size, then said the words I never expected to hear: I would like to invest in your vision. The investment allowed me to move operations from my apartment to a small studio in Brooklyn, hire a proper team, and significantly expand our product line. Crucially, I insisted that our team reflect our values. We hired people who had been marginalized in traditional fashion and beauty spaces: older women, people of color, those with visible disabilities or unconventional appearances. Our first major fashion show was held in an abandoned warehouse in Brooklyn, transformed with minimal decoration into a raw, authentic space. Instead of traditional models, we featured real people of all shapes, sizes, ages, and appearances. The contrast with typical runway shows could not have been more stark, and the fashion press took notice. Hazel J Designs challenges beauty norms with radical inclusivity, read one headline. Another declared the anti-fashion fashion show that has the industry talking. Not all coverage was positive. Some traditional fashion critics dismissed us as a gimmick or charity case. One particularly scathing review called our show a parade of ugliness masquerading as inclusivity. But the negative press only fueled interest. Orders increased exponentially. More boutiques wanted to carry our line. Our social media following grew daily as people found representation they had never seen before. Through it all, I remained the face of the brand, still very much the ugly duckling according to conventional standards. I made no attempt to change my appearance to fit industry expectations, a stance that became part of our brand identity. In interviews, I spoke openly about my experience of being rejected for my appearance and how it informed our mission. Beauty is not a narrow path we should all struggle to walk, became my standard response when asked about conventional attractiveness. It is a wild, diverse landscape with infinite possibilities. 2 years after launching the website, we had grown from 15 pieces to a comprehensive collection with international shipping. The tiny Brooklyn studio had been replaced by proper office space with 20 employees. We had been featured in major fashion publications not as a curiosity but as a business-changing industry expectations. Most significantly, I had found confidence in my own skin. The insecure girl who had been deemed the ugliest graduate had become a woman comfortable in the spotlight, advocating for a broader definition of beauty. I had not changed my appearance to gain this confidence. I had changed my relationship with the concept of beauty itself. As the business grew, we expanded beyond clothing, into a small cosmetics line, based on the same philosophy, enhancing unique features rather than concealing them. Each product was named after a different form of natural beauty, often overlooked: mountain crag, desert bloom, weathered driftwood. The success brought personal changes too. I moved from my shared apartment into a beautiful Brooklyn brownstone, my first real home since leaving Connecticut. I began building a chosen family of friends and colleagues who valued authenticity above perfection. I even started dating, finding partners who appreciated rather than tolerated my appearance. 3 years into our success story, as we prepared to open our first flagship store in Manhattan, I received an unexpected email from my sister Alexandra. Subject line: "Congratulations, and I am sorry. I have been following your success," she wrote. "What you have built is extraordinary. I want you to know that I regret my part in what happened. Our family was wrong. I am proud to be your sister if you still consider me that." After days of consideration, I replied with an invitation to coffee. The meeting was awkward, years of hurt and misunderstanding, creating a chasm between us, but it was a start. "Mom and Dad have seen your features in magazines," Alexandra told me hesitantly. "They would never admit it, but I think they are impressed by what you have accomplished." "And you?" I asked. "Are you just here because I am successful now?" Her expression crumpled. "I deserve that. But no. I am here because losing you made me question everything about our family values. It took me too long to realize how toxic they were." We parted with a tentative plan to meet again, the possibility of reconciliation, a fragile seedling. The attempted reconnection with Alexandra was barely processed when my parents made their move. Not with a humble email or apologetic phone call, but with a lawyer. They arrived unannounced at our office, dressed impeccably as always. "We are so proud of what you have accomplished," my mother said, as if the years of silence and rejection had never happened. "We always knew you had potential." My father nodded agreement. "Your business acumen clearly comes from my side of the family." They had come with a proposition: they wanted to invest in the company to be part of this exciting journey. The real motivation became clear when my father mentioned the excellent publicity opportunities for his practice, specializing in the very procedures my brand stood against. Standing in my own office, facing the parents who had disowned me for refusing to surgically alter my appearance, I felt a strange calm. The approval I had desperately sought for so many years was finally being offered, but I no longer needed it. "Thank you for the offer," I said politely, "but our investor roster is currently closed, and our brand values would not align with a plastic surgery practice." Their expressions of disbelief would once have devastated me. Now they simply confirmed I had made the right choice years ago when I walked out their door. As they left, my mother turned back briefly. "You could have had our support all along if you had just made more effort with your appearance." "No," I replied. "I could have had your approval by becoming someone else. Instead, I found success by being exactly who I am." The encounter, though painful, was oddly freeing. I had faced my deepest fears and found them powerless against the person I had become. The ugly duckling had not turned into a swan. She had become something far more interesting. A phoenix, rising from the ashes of rejection to create a new definition of beauty, entirely her own. 5 years after launching Hazel J Designs, I received an email that made my stomach drop. Subject line: Fairfield High 10-year reunion. I stared at my computer screen, conflicting emotions swirling through me. A decade had passed since that fateful graduation day when Brittany and her friends had humiliated me and set in motion the chain of events that led to my family disowning me. In that decade, I had built a multi-million-dollar company redefining beauty standards. I had been featured in Vogue, interviewed on national television, and named one of Business Weekly's entrepreneurs to watch. The wounded girl who had fled Connecticut with one suitcase was unrecognizable in the confident businesswoman I had become. Yet seeing that email brought all the old insecurities rushing back. "Delete it," suggested Paula now, my chief operating officer, when I mentioned the invitation during our weekly leadership meeting. "Or go and show them exactly who Hazel Johnson became," countered Marcus Williams, our marketing director. The debate continued among my friends and team for weeks. Part of me wanted to ignore the invitation to demonstrate that I had moved so far beyond high school that it did not even register on my radar. Another part craved the satisfaction of walking into that gym as living proof that their cruelty had failed to define me. "What are you actually afraid of?" asked Diego Rodriguez, my current partner, and a photographer whose work celebrated unconventional beauty. "That they will still have power over you." His question crystallized my decision. I had built a brand around owning your authentic self. How could I advocate that philosophy while hiding from my own past? I RSVP'd yes to the reunion and began planning what might be the most important appearance of my career. The night of the reunion, I chose to wear one of our newest designs, a sophisticated jumpsuit in deep emerald that made no attempt to hide my figure, but instead celebrated its unique contours. My hair, still frizzy and unruly by conventional standards, was worn naturally. My makeup from our own line enhanced rather than concealed. Around my neck, my grandmother's opal caught the light. Diego squeezed my hand as our car approached Fairfield High. "Remember who you are now," he said softly. Walking into the gymnasium felt like stepping through a time portal. The same bland decorations, the same awkward clusters of people, the same underlying current of social anxiety. For a moment I was 18 again, clutching my graduation dress, heart hammering with hope and fear. Then someone recognized me. "Is that Hazel Johnson?" The whisper spread through the crowd like wildfire. Heads turned, conversations stuttered to a halt. A path cleared as I walked through the gymnasium, Diego at my side. Taylor, who had remained a close friend and now headed our product development team, appeared at my elbow, a glass of champagne in hand. "Your public awaits," she murmured, suppressing a smile. The first to approach was Alice Thompson, once a quiet bystander to Brittany's bullying. "Hazel, I follow your company on Instagram. What you are doing is amazing." Others followed, some genuinely interested in my work, others clearly curious about how the ugly duckling had managed such a transformation. I answered questions graciously, but did not seek validation from any of them. Across the room, I spotted Brittany Walker, still beautiful in the conventional sense but somehow diminished. Her once confident posture now seemed rigid with effort. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. Later, as I stood by the refreshment table, she approached, champagne glass clutched like a shield. "Hazel," she said, voice artificially bright, "you look different." "And you look exactly the same, Brittany," I replied calmly. "How have you been?" The conversation that followed was a masterclass in social awkwardness. Brittany, now working in pharmaceutical sales and recently divorced, tried to establish rapport as if we had been casual acquaintances rather than bully and victim. "I always knew you would do something creative," she said, desperation creeping into her tone. "We should get together sometime. I would love to hear more about your company." The subtext was clear. She wanted access to my success connections, possibly opportunities. The same person who had orchestrated my public humiliation now wanted to benefit from what I had built from the ashes of that experience. "I am actually very selective about my professional network," I replied. "I prioritize people who share our values of kindness and inclusion." Her smile faltered. "About graduation. It was just a stupid joke. We were kids." "We were 18, Brittany, old enough to vote, old enough to know better." As she stammered through an excuse, we were interrupted by the event organizer announcing it was time for the "Where Are We Now" presentations. Several graduates had been asked to share their journeys since high school. To my surprise, my name was called first. Standing at the podium, looking out at the faces that had once represented a daily gauntlet of judgment and rejection, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. 10 years ago, I left this school having been voted ugliest graduate in a cruel yearbook prank. I began, my voice steady. Uncomfortable shifting rippled through the audience. That same night, my family gave me an ultimatum: change my appearance through plastic surgery or leave home. I chose to leave. The room was utterly silent now. That moment of rejection became the foundation of everything I have built. Hazel J Designs began with a simple premise. Beauty should not be a narrow standard we all strive to meet, but a diverse landscape we each express uniquely. I described the journey from homelessness to success, the challenges and victories, the community we had built around our philosophy. I did not soften the reality of how their cruelty had affected me, but neither did I position myself as a victim. So to everyone who voted me ugliest graduate, I concluded, thank you. You taught me that the most beautiful thing any of us can be is authentically ourselves. The applause that followed was thunderous. As I stepped down from the podium, Kevin Wright, the former yearbook editor, approached with tears in his eyes. I have wanted to apologize for years, he said. I should have stood up to Brittany and refused to include that doctored photo. What we did was inexcusable. His public apology opened the floodgates. Throughout the evening, former classmates approached with their own reckonings, some genuine, others clearly motivated by my current success. The most surprising outcome of the reunion came the following week. Jonathan Baker, now the buyer for a major department store chain who had attended the reunion as a spouse, emailed with a business proposition, an exclusive Hazel J Designs collection for their stores nationwide. Your speech made me realize how desperately the industry needs your perspective, he wrote. We want to be part of changing the conversation about beauty. The deal would expand our reach exponentially, bringing our philosophy to mainstream America. It was the kind of opportunity I had once only dreamed about. As we finalized the department store partnership, an unexpected visit disrupted our Brooklyn office. My parents, unannounced, once again appeared in the reception area. We need to speak with Hazel, my father informed the startled receptionist. We are her parents. When I emerged from my office, to find them waiting, the contrast between their rigid perfectionism and our colorful, inclusive workspace could not have been more stark. We saw the article about your department store deal, my mother said without preamble. The family is very impressed. The family, I repeated. I was not aware I still had one. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we were hasty in our reaction 10 years ago. Hasty, I echoed. You disowned me. You made me homeless rather than accept me as I was. We wanted what was best for you, my mother insisted. No, I corrected her. You wanted what was least embarrassing for you. The conversation moved to my office, where they revealed their true purpose. My father's practice was struggling as natural aging gained acceptance and preventative procedures became more popular than extensive surgeries. They wanted to collaborate with my brand to be publicly reconciled with their successful daughter. We could help each other, my father suggested. Your success has made us reconsider our position. The realization was both painful and freeing. They still did not see me. They saw only the success, the validation of external recognition. Even now, they could not value me for myself, but only for what I had achieved. I appreciate you coming, I said, rising from my desk. But I am not interested in a reconciliation based on what I can do for you. The time for being my parents was 10 years ago, when I needed support, not now, when I have succeeded despite your rejection. My mother's face hardened into familiar lines of disapproval. You always were stubborn, Hazel. We are offering you a chance to heal the family. The family broke when you chose appearances over your daughter, I replied. That is not something I can heal for you. As they left, I felt not the vindication I might once have imagined in such a scene, but a quiet sadness for what could never be recovered. Some bridges once burned leave only ashes. That evening, Alexandra called, having heard about our parents' visit. I want you to know, I had nothing to do with that, she said. They do not speak for me. Unlike our parents, Alexandra had done the hard work of examining her own complicity in the family's toxic values. Over the past 2 years, our relationship had slowly rebuilt on a foundation of genuine respect rather than shared DNA. "Would you like to come to the department store launch next month?" I asked impulsively, as my sister, not as a Johnson family representative. Her tearful acceptance was the beginning of a new chapter in our relationship, one based on who we were choosing to become, rather than who we had been raised to be. The reunion and its aftermath brought a resolution I had not known I needed. I had faced the past and found it powerless against the present I had built. The ugly duckling had not only survived but had redefined the very pond in which she swam. As I approach my 35th birthday, the trajectory of my life continues to surprise me. Hazel J Designs has expanded from clothing and cosmetics into a comprehensive lifestyle brand. Our flagship stores in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago have become community hubs where people gather not just to shop, but to connect around a shared philosophy of authentic beauty. Our most recent campaign, Beauty Beyond Boundaries, features individuals who have been systematically excluded from conventional beauty narratives: people with visible disabilities, burn survivors, those with skin conditions, elders embracing their aging process. The response has been overwhelming, with stories pouring in from around the world about the impact of seeing genuine representation. The little girl who once cringed at family evaluation sessions now leads a company valued at over $50 million. The teen who was voted Ugliest Graduate was recently named one of Time magazine's changemakers for transforming industry standards. The young woman who left home with one suitcase now owns a light-filled Brooklyn brownstone filled with art books and people she loves. But the true measure of my journey lies not in financial success or media recognition, but in the healing that has gradually unfolded. 5 years after our department store launch, I established the Dorothea Johnson Foundation, named for my grandmother. The foundation provides support for young people struggling with body image issues and funds educational programs about media literacy and beauty standards. Each year, we award scholarships to students pursuing careers in fashion, beauty, and media who demonstrate commitment to inclusive representation. When I visit high schools as part of the foundation's outreach, I share my story openly, neither minimizing the pain nor glamorizing the struggle. The questions from students reveal how little has changed, in some ways how desperately they still seek validation based on appearance. "How did you learn to love yourself when everyone said you were ugly?" asked one 15-year-old girl at a school in Detroit, her voice barely audible. "I did not learn to love myself overnight," I told her honestly. "I learned to trust myself first, to believe that my worth was not determined by other people's perceptions." Self-love followed gradually from that foundation of self-trust. These speaking engagements have become a core part of my mission, a way of reaching young people before the culture's toxic standards become too deeply internalized. After each session, at least one student always approaches with tears or fierce determination in their eyes, seeing in my story a possibility for their own. My personal life has found its own healing rhythm. Diego and I married 3 years ago, in a ceremony that celebrated our commitment to seeing and valuing each other authentically. Our relationship is built on mutual respect and the shared belief that love should expand rather than diminish who we are. We recently welcomed our daughter Luna, whose arrival has deepened my commitment to creating a world where she can grow up defining beauty on her own terms. When I look at her, I see not a blank canvas to shape according to arbitrary standards, but a complete person with her own inherent dignity and worth. My chosen family has expanded too. Taylor remains my closest friend and business partner. Audrey, now a successful psychologist, provides valuable insight for our foundation's programs. Brian documents our journey through his photography, having found his voice capturing authentic beauty in all its forms. Perhaps the most surprising development has been the gradual healing with some members of my biological family. Alexandra and I have built a genuine relationship based on current reality rather than past wounds. She left our parents' practice to work in reconstructive surgery for burn survivors and accident victims, finding purpose in helping people reclaim their sense of self after trauma. My mother, after years of maintaining her rigid standards, experienced her own health crisis that forced her to confront the impermanence of physical beauty. The humbling process of recovery led her to therapy, where she began examining the generational patterns of conditional worth she had perpetuated. Our relationship remains complicated and sometimes painful, but there is now space for authentic connection that was impossible before. During a rare dinner together last year, she said something I never expected to hear. "I was wrong, Hazel, about everything that matters. My father has remained more distant, unable or unwilling to fully re-examine the values that defined his career and worldview. We maintain minimal, cordial contact, a peace treaty, rather than a true reconciliation. I have accepted that some relationships can only heal to a certain point, and that acceptance itself is a form of closure. The journey from rejection to reclamation has taught me lessons I try to share through both my personal story and my company's mission. True beauty is not conformity to an external standard, but the authentic expression of who you are. The people who cannot accept you as you are do not deserve the gift of your adaptation. Rejection can be redirection toward your genuine path. Sometimes you must break with the familiar to discover your true potential. Worth is inherent, not earned through appearance or achievement. The most powerful act of resistance against a toxic culture is to define beauty for yourself. Each of these lessons was purchased through pain, refined through resilience, and ultimately transformed into purpose. The wound of being called ugly became the gateway to a more expansive definition of beauty. The trauma of family rejection became the foundation for creating chosen family based on genuine acceptance. As Luna grows, I will teach her what my grandmother tried to teach me, that true beauty comes from within and shines outward in unexpected ways. I will show her through example that authenticity is more powerful than conformity, that character outshines conventional attractiveness, that being too much or not enough by someone else's standards is never a reason to diminish yourself. The opal necklace that once represented my only connection to family support now symbolizes something more, the fire within that reveals itself only when we refuse to be less than who we truly are. 10 years after being called the ugliest graduate and being disowned by my family, I stand not as a victim who overcame, but as a woman who redefined the very terms used to diminish her. The ugly duckling did not need to become a swan. She needed only to recognize the unique beauty of her own reflection. I share this story not for sympathy or admiration, but as an invitation to examine how we define beauty in our own lives. Are we accepting limited definitions that exclude and diminish, or are we brave enough to embrace the vast diversity of human beauty in all its forms? If my journey resonates with you, I would love to hear your own stories of redefining beauty on your terms. Drop a comment below about a time you rejected someone else's definition of your worth. Like this video if you believe beauty standards need radical expansion, subscribe for more stories of transformation, and share with someone who might need to hear that their unique appearance is not something to fix, but something to celebrate. Thank you for joining me on this journey of redefinition, and remember, the most beautiful thing you can ever be is authentically yourself.